Thank you all for coming out here. It's great to see everybody. My name is Brendan Little. I'm the Policy Director for the Mayor's Office of Recovery Services. We're so grateful to have you here tonight to have this discussion. We wanted to present some updates around the Long Island Recovery Campus that we're planning, and we also wanted to hear from you. So this is very much about what you all have to say and what your thoughts and ideas. But before we get into any of the presentations, I wanted to first introduce Mayor Marty Walsh.
Thank you, Brendan, and let me just thank everyone for coming out tonight. I know that there are many people in the room that are from the recovery community. Thank you, but most importantly, I want to thank the Quincy residents that are here tonight. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to what the panel is going to talk about. There's going to be some questions and answers. I think that this conversation of Long Island Bridge in the beginning of 2 years ago, the intention was not to. When we had to close Allen down, the intention was not to have you put up with a lot of nonsense that you're concerned about. I went to Long Island for about 10 years doing a commitment on Long Island. Long Island, as many of you in this room know, and the Quincy folks, what was out there many years ago was a whole bunch of recovery services. We had a homeless facility out there. We had a reentry program out there. We had halfway houses out there. We had detoxes out there, and I went out to the detox every other Sunday to put on a commitment. In 2014, when I got elected mayor, in August of 2014, I went out to the island to take a tour of Camp Harborview. It was out there, as you know. When I went out there were some transportation workers on the bridge, and they were working on the bridge, and the stanchion joints were coming apart. It was the middle of summer. And the engineer who worked on that project was here tonight, Paragen, saying, I stopped the car and I got out, and I said, what's going on? And he said, the bridge is in very bad shape. It's been patched out for years and decades of patchwork, and it's in pretty bad shape. We're not really sure how much more we can get out of the bridge, but we need to try and see what we can do here. So we started to think about how do we fix the bridge. Not the programs on the island, fix the bridge. In October of 2014, Michael Dennehy, then was my Public Works Commissioner. He came in to me, I think it was a Wednesday, and he said, Long Island Bridge needs to be shut down. I said, when? He goes, now. I said, what do you mean? He goes, it's collapsing. We can't put anyone else on the island. We can't take anyone off the island. And immediately at that moment, we put notification out to shut the bridge down. I took a lot of heat that day because a lot of people felt that we should have evacuated the islands, and we didn't evacuate the island because we were quite honestly concerned about the bridge and what was going to happen with the bridge. The last thing I wanted to do was have a busload of people going across the island, either coming or going, and having the bridge collapse into the Atlantic Ocean. We shut the bridge down. We moved the programs out. We set up an emergency homeless facility in the south end of Boston. We set up makeshift detox in certain places. Some programs, quite honestly, were out of business for a couple of years. One thing that we thought about when we did with the bridge, for me personally, I thought about immediately we were going to rebuild the bridge, but I started to think about what kind of services should be on the island. Because for years, we had homeless programs on the island. And basically what we were doing in Boston was housing homeless people, meaning we were putting them on buses, bringing them out to the island, and then every day they'd either get dropped off at North Quincy Station, and then people complain about that, then we drop them off at JFK UMass, and people complain about that, then we drop them off in town. This is before I was the mayor, and we literally would find different places in Boston to put people when they came off down. That's how the operation worked for a long time. And then I became the mayor, and we started thinking about, are we delivering service for homelessness right in Boston? Are we delivering it right in the Commonwealth? So we sat down and we started talking about the way we deliver our homeless programs, and we realized that we're doing it wrong. We're just housing homeless people in a shelter, and we weren't creating opportunities for people to get onto pathways back into solid footing. So since that time to today, we've housed in Boston 1,600 chronically homeless people. We've taken 4,500 years of homelessness off the street, and we have a system in place for homelessness. Now, those homeless folks that are on our street, most of them aren't from Boston. They come from all over the Commonwealth, they come from all over the country, but it doesn't matter. That's my job, my obligation, our obligation to take care of those folks. The second place is the reentry program that we had on the island, Wyman Reentry Center. We found a new location on River Street for them, and we realized that the service over there actually works probably better because there's better access to tea in the city, there's opportunities. So we're working on our reentry program. We have a great reentry program in the city, and then we also created what's called the Office of Returning Citizen for folks that come out of jail, and we're tying them up with jobs. So we realized that putting the reentry back on the island doesn't make sense either, because it doesn't really work for people in reentry. The detox programs that were on the island, Rebound had one for juveniles, younger people, I should say, not juveniles, younger people, and Victory programs had some, and I think Bay Cove had some, and some of the other organizations had detox programs. And we started having the conversation around detox beds, the fact that, do we really have to put detox beds back on the island? Is there an opportunity, is there an infrastructure that's here now that's built up so we can take care of people with detoxes? And we also realized that detoxes aren't necessarily needed on the island. When I mean that, they're not needed on the island. So we said, okay, what's needed on the island if we're gonna rebuild the bridge? And one of the things that we realized that are needed in recovery communities, and that's Boston and Quincy and Squantum and Marina Bay and Lowell Mills and all over the city and outside the city, are long-term detox beds. Long-term, recovery beds. These are halfway houses. These are licensed by the state. These are beds that somebody will go into for, usually it's a 9-month program. Some of them a 6-month program, not much shorter than 6 months. And they go up to a year, maybe a year and a half, 2 years. The Gavin House has one. They're doing a Mountain House in Brockton and a whole bunch of other places. And that's the campus we're talking about. We're talking about a campus situation where people go, have an addiction problem, whether it's booze or alcohol. Mine was alcohol. They go to a detox. They're looking to go to further treatment. They go from a detox to a holding. While they're in the holding, they're waiting to get a bed for a halfway house bed. And oftentimes those beds are 16 weeks, 20 weeks away, and those beds aren't there. And that's the idea of this island. This isn't about to be an inconvenience to Squantum or Quincy. This isn't about me not liking Quincy. I have 2 aunts that when they came from Ireland to America, one lived in Wollaston and one lived in North Quincy. West Quincy. I have family in Quincy. I regard Quincy as an extension of Boston. As a state representative, I represented Ward 3, Precinct 3, Montclair, in the legislature. My friends are the elected officials in Quincy. And this isn't about being against Quincy, to the residents that are here from Quincy. But you do have concerns. And you do have situations that you want to talk about, and you should talk about them. Because right now it's nice and quiet in front of your house. I understand that. With the bridge shut down, you're not having buses go by and other things go by. But our job is we're not doing this to inconvenience you. What we're doing is to try and create opportunities for people. And that's why we're here tonight. And I apologize that we're having the meeting here in Dorchester. The meeting belongs in Quincy, but we couldn't find a location in Quincy to have it. We had it set up, it was canceled on us, and that's why we're here in Dorchester. I will come to Quincy anytime, any day, to talk about what we're doing here on Long Island. I will sit, I will take the questions, I will hear anything you have to say, I will work with you. My job as an elected official is not to get people angry at me. My job is to try and make people happy. And that includes Quincy. Even though I represent Boston. It doesn't matter to me. And you have great elected officials in Quincy and people that care. Your councilor in Quincy and Squantum cares about your neighborhood. We've talked. Your state representative in Squantum cares about your neighborhood. We've talked. Your mayor clearly cares, because we've had many conversations. And I wish they were all great, but they weren't that great, some of them. But he's a good person, and he cares. And he cares about this issue, and I know he cares about this issue. And I know Bruce Ayers cares about this issue, because I served in the House with him, and he was on the House floor with me, working to make sure more money gets into programming. So we're here tonight. We're going to do our best to make sure that the panelists that come here will be here to hear your concerns. I ask everyone in the room, this is not Boston versus Quincy. If a resident stands up and is frustrated and angry, they have a right to be. If somebody from the recovery community gets up and gives you a story, you have the right to tell your story. I ask everyone to respect each other tonight. This isn't about fighting. We shouldn't be arguing and fighting. We should be talking about, is there a possibility for us to get to a solution? And that's why I'm here tonight. And I want to thank you all for being here tonight. I want to recognize from the City of Boston, City Councilor Nisa Sabi George, who is a citywide city councilor here in Boston. She lives in Dorchester. And I would like to go into all the organizations. I don't want to go into the organizations because if I leave somebody out, I'll be in trouble. But most importantly, the people that are here from Quincy, thank you. Thank you for coming here tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. We're now going to have a short video followed by a presentation.
just trying to get my life together from the drugs, and you know, you cause so much havoc and destruction, and then you get taken to this island where people show you love and support, and you're not seeing the highways, the sounds of all the cars. You know, you're able to listen to the birds and see, you know, the sun come up, and it's a lot more peace. And it's like when you get to that island, you're able to really think.
It's significant, that long drive across that bridge, because this is a break for people from their alcohol and drug use, and it's a new start.
You know, a lot of people went over that bridge, drove onto that island, and their life was in complete shambles. And many people drove off that island when they left the program. Their life, there was hope.
Change is possible, and hope is probably the best thing you can have in your life.
When I was first sent to Long Island, even though it was involuntary, being surrounded by all this ocean, all this green space was really meaningful. You begin to feel like you're worth that beauty. You begin to feel like you're worth something as special as that place.
There's no question, when I go to Long Island, I see the opportunity to create a comprehensive recovery campus that will allow us to fill gaps in services, allow us to create a stronger continuum of care.
You have this valuable asset in this island, and you're giving it to people who are at their lowest point of their life. It's not that you're hiding those people away. You're telling those people, no, you're worth an investment. You're worth a heavy investment. You're worth building an infrastructure to support you. And yes, it's a big project. Yes, it's daunting and it's expensive, but you're worth it.
I just want to make one other introduction. I didn't see him when I was speaking, but City Councilor Harris is here. Thank you, Councilor, for being here tonight. And again, this is not about me versus against the councilor. This is about a situation that we need to do a job explaining exactly what it is that we want to do in the island. And I want to thank you for being here, Council.
And then with that, I'd like to have Chief Marty Martinez, Jennifer Tracy come up. Chief Osgood as well, if you're here, you can come sit up here. So just before they jump in, I just wanted to say, you know, we're here today as public officials, you know, to represent the city of Boston. But I also was on the island when I was 14 years old. So this is, you know, personal to me. Yes, we're public officials, but I was a kid out there. I was featured as one of the voices, as well as these people in the video. And you know, this is personal for us. It really matters. So I just wanted to put that out there. Yes, we're here in our suits talking to you about this issue and hoping to have a really good conversation, but we just want you to know that this is something that's very near and dear to our hearts. So with that, I'd like to invite Chief Martinez and Jennifer Tracy up.
So good evening, everyone. We are gonna be brief, which we don't always get to be brief, but we are going to be brief because we want to save most of the time for folks to be able to offer thoughts and reflections and ask questions they may have about what the plans are for Long Island. So we're going to start looking at the campus itself and what we're doing to develop the recovery campus. As most of you know, the Long Island was home to, and as the mayor mentioned to you, it was home to shelters, it was home to service treatment facilities. It was home to, and still is home to, Camp Harborview, a summer camp for young people, and a small farm that it's home to. And those services that were there, and you saw the buildings and the video, remind you a little bit of what those services were that were on Long Island. A little bit, I sort of feel like I'm in the way here, but a little bit around those services, there were shelter beds and recovery beds on Long Island. Roughly 500 shelter beds, 200 plus recovery beds, with a variety of the programs that the mayor mentioned that served clients, a certain number of clients at a time, but hundreds and hundreds of folks, thousands of folks served over the course of the history of Long Island. And as we continue to look what's there, we want to make sure that we can create a comprehensive campus that's going to address the issue that we're facing today. That issue, as you know, I don't need to tell you, many of you know this, but roughly we've had in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, roughly 2,000 people have died from a drug overdose each year since 2016. 2016, 2017, 2018, we've seen roughly 2,000 or so, plus or minus a few folks who have died from a drug overdose. And we've had many more people who have non-fatal overdoses. And while that number has continued to go on flat over the last several years, or this last year, we're still seeing an increase in non-fatal overdoses. Folks who may be surviving, but folks who are still struggling with the epidemic. Because of the issues that we're facing and the regional challenge we're facing, we're working hard to build this recovery campus. You know why the bridge was closed, so we'll skip that. You know this map that's here, it's hard to see anyways, we'll skip that. But what I want to make sure you see is what we're trying to do. We're trying to expand essential recovery services for the region. You've heard the mayor mention that this is a regional recovery campus because we know that who we serve in Boston and who we serve in our city and beyond is well beyond those who just live in Boston or are from Boston. This regional campus, as was the case when programs were in Long Island before, served people from all over eastern Massachusetts and beyond. That is the case today with the services we provide, and it'll continue to be the case. We want to fill gaps in the continuum of care, the mayor mentioned those, and we want to utilize the natural environment to provide a healing space. For many people, having the opportunity to be in a space where there may not be the triggers that exist in everyday neighborhoods is important. And to be able to have access to the space is an important opportunity for folks. We're trying to fill the gaps that are in the continuum of care, and the continuum of care is above you here today. I know some of you are in depth, very involved in this work, whether you're a provider or you've experienced these issues yourself, so I don't want to go too in depth, but I know others of you are here to learn a little bit about the information that we're presenting. This continuum of care kind of walks you through the services that someone may be engaged in and be able to take advantage in. And I can see people moving, so I'm going to stress so you can see it here. But again, we're talking about services for folks who are trying to get stabilized, trying to get supports as they get into the first stage on their path of recovery. We're talking about beyond this stage, which is the detox stage that might be called, we're talking about stabilization services, transitional support services, residential recovery services to help people keep on the path of recovery and treatment. That's the kind of services that we're looking to put on the campus, and it's also the kinds of services that are least accessible today. We have folks who may go through detox and may wait many days, many weeks to be able to get a bed in another facility. And every hour is critical at that point, once you get beyond those resources. And I know people know that. But that's the gaps that we're seeing today, and it's the gaps we're trying to create. I want to point out to you, before we look at this next piece, is that we're talking about a level of care where people need support, where people need to be monitored, where people may need to have access to medical support immediately. And so we're talking about needing ambulatory support for folks so they can get the resources they need to be healthy and well. And it's important to remember that because that's part of the campus that we're trying to create, and it's part of the gaps that exist today. The next slide will show you what we're trying to do. We have talked to, between Jen Tracy, myself, Brendan, and our teams, Health and Human Services, the Health Commission Recovery Services, over 150 different stakeholders, including organizations, people in recovery, people with lived experience, nonprofit providers, community organizations, folks who wanted to weigh in on what is happening in Long Island. We've talked with them so that we can understand what both is the service continuum, what are the gaps that we're not seeing filled, what are the resources we need to address as we're in the midst of this epidemic. We've also spent time with our city officials looking at the facilities on Long Island. We've gone onto the campus a couple times ourselves, and we also have consultants who have gone onto the campus to better understand the buildings that are there. You saw the aerial view. All of those buildings are closed, and so we've gone to make sure to understand those facilities while at the same time understanding community perspective and need. It has been our goal to listen and learn and understand what those gaps are so we can try to create the campus that we desperately need. We also released, and I'm sure many of you and some of you I know here did fill it out, we released a request for information through the city website where we asked people to weigh in on what would go on the island. We wanted to hear people's ideas, people's thoughts, people's stories about what had happened, and we want to continue to do that, and we'll make sure that we continue to do that in our next step. So what we're doing right now is trying to create a master plan. So while you're going to hear briefly in a minute about the bridge, we are working to create this master plan in partnership with Gensler, which is a consulting firm, and Ascension Recovery Services, who's their partner, who has created recovery campuses in other parts of the country. We are working to take the data and the trends around the issues today and the issues in the future, taking provider input and community feedback through the stakeholder conversations that we've had, and the facilities assessment and the resources we have to create a master plan. We are not only working to understand where we're at today, we're looking to understand what may happen in the future, what public health challenges may be there, and how we create a campus that will put the right services on the table to be able to support our work. Having said that, we have also worked with and met with the state to understand their planning processes. We're thinking about our own infrastructure and neighborhoods and what's happening in different places so that we can have a comprehensive approach to the campus, to the needs that we're trying to address. I can't stress it enough that what we're trying to do is make sure that we're filling critically important gaps. The epidemic is hard, as you all know well, is hitting Boston and hitting New England disproportionately compared to other places in the country. And so we are looking every day to tackle resources, quality of life issues, and neighborhood level issues while planning for a comprehensive campus that will meet an important need that we have not only in the city of Boston, but in all cities around the area and in the region. While we're creating this master plan and working through the information that we've collected, the data, the epi data, and all the feedback, our colleagues in the city are also working to make sure we have bridge access to the island, which is critically important to create the types of services we need to make sure we're meeting the needs that people are faced with today. So I'm going to ask Chief Osgood to come up and tell you what we're doing around the bridge and the effort that we're taking on, and then we'll make sure we have time for questions and answers. Chief Osgood.
Thank you so much, Chief Martinez, and to echo the mayor's comments, thank you so much, everybody, for being here tonight. Again, I'm Chris Osgood. I have the honor of serving as Mayor Walsh's Chief of Streets, and my team's focus is really on rebuilding the superstructure of the Long Island Bridge. As folks may know, and as many of you may have attended, we've actually had 3 separate and very detailed community conversations about the bridge itself. 2 before the Quincy Conservation Commission, 1 in front of the Boston Conservation Commission. If we get into those specifics tonight, we've got the right team here. We've got our team from Public Works, our team from STV and TRC, our design consultants are here with us. My intent, though, really over the next few minutes is to give a really high-level overview of the bridge itself and the bridge project that we have in front of us. At the highest level, what we are doing is we are simply rebuilding a bridge deck that existed for 65 of the last 70 years. As we rebuild that bridge deck, our intent is to build it back better, to build a bridge deck that is more environmentally friendly and more sustainable. And that as we do that construction project, we want to make sure that we are doing everything we can to minimize environmental impact and minimize any impact on the residents of Quincy. To go to the next slide, and I apologize if these are a little washed out. On the left, you can see the original superstructure of the bridge. On the right, you see the proposed new superstructure for the bridge. As you can tell, they are very similar. The one on the left was built back roughly 1950, and as Chief Martinez said, was closed and the superstructure was taken down in 2015. The one on the right leverages the existing piers with a new and improved design that makes it more environmentally friendly and more sustainable. You go to the next slide. So this walks through what in many ways are our design goals for the bridge itself. We want to minimize any wetland impacts. We want to minimize any construction impacts for residents in Quincy. We want to be able to improve the stormwater performance of the bridge. We want to build a bridge which will last for at least 75 years. And we want to improve the resilience of the bridge itself. To go to the next slide, we are very confident that the bridge design that we have is one that meets those 5 objectives. Just to go through this in short. For continuity's sake, we actually have the same program for the bridge going forward as the previous bridge. So that means 1 lane of travel going out to Long Island, 1 lane of travel back from Long Island to Moon Island, with a sidewalk and lighting on the side. To minimize environmental impact, our intent is to reuse the piers that are there and not build any new piers into Boston Harbor. To improve the stormwater performance, we are going to be taking a different approach to handling stormwater. In the future, in the past, that stormwater would essentially drain straight through into Boston Harbor. Instead, we'll be capturing it, processing it, and returning cleaner water back to Boston Harbor. To ensure a 75-year lifespan, we'll be investing in strengthening the bridge piers that are there and updating the actual design standard, and to again minimize any environmental impact and community impact as we actually go through this construction process. Our approach, our plan is to actually build the major spans of the bridge, the major sections of the bridge actually in the city of Boston, and to float them out into Boston Harbor and mount them on the existing piers. Again, reducing environmental impact, reducing community impact in that process. In total, this is the construction of about a 3,400-foot bridge that's currently funded through the City of Boston's budget, and we're going through that permitting process right now. There are a pair of questions that have come up in the permitting process that I thought would be useful for us just to address quickly before turning it back over to Brendan and to all of you for the Q&A. The first question, if you go to the next slide, is the question of whether the piers will support this new superstructure. And the answer is absolutely yes. We have a plan that we've been working on to ensure that the piers that we're going to use will be strong enough to support a new superstructure. That plan is based upon a proven set of practices that have been used in other places. We've done extensive material testing on the existing piers. That material testing has been done by a third-party AASHTO certified organization, and the results of those analyses actually support that plan. And so again, we feel very confident that the existing piers will be able to support this new superstructure. Simply put, the piers we have, when strengthened, will be piers that we can use simply for the next 75 years. If we go to the next slide, I just want to reinforce something that Chief Martinez mentioned, because this has come up also in the community process, in the permitting process, which is why replace the bridge. We're talking about the bridge project not because we want to build a new bridge deck. We're talking about building the new bridge deck because it is necessary to be able to reopen the recovery campus that Chief Martinez spoke about. As has been done for generations, as has been done from 1950 all the way until 2014, a bridge to Long Island was the best way to provide supports that were most needed by the community. Our intent is to be able to provide that emergency access to the island, that emergency egress from the island, to be able to put a transportation plan in place, which means a bridge, to be able to provide or respond to the necessary functions of the recovery campus that we are designing for Long Island itself. And again, as we rebuild this bridge deck, as we go through this process, we are taking every step that we can to reduce the environmental impact, to reduce the impact, the construction impact for any residents in Quincy. And we appreciate all the feedback which folks have already given us through our public conversations at the Conservation Commissions, through this forum tonight. And as the Mayor said, again, we are always open to your feedback and look forward to hearing it tonight and in the days ahead. So thanks so much.